Mom, I need you to handle Thanksgiving dinner this year. It'll be 15 people from Evan's family, and you know how you cook. Paige's voice sounded breezy over the phone, like she was asking Clara Whitman to grab milk on her way home. Clara, 72, felt the world pause as she absorbed her daughter's words. 72 years of life, 45 years of marriage, 30 widowed, and now this. 15 people, Paige. And why am I in charge of everything? Claire asked, gripping the phone until her knuckles whitened. On the other end, Paige sighed, impatient, like a child mid tantrum. Oh, Mom, because you have free time. We work all day. Plus, Evan's house is too small for his whole family. Yours is perfect. Big dining room, roomy kitchen, and let's be honest, no one roasts turkey like you. Clara closed her eyes and leaned against the kitchen wall. The same Portland bungalow kitchen where she'd made thousands of meals for Paige as a kid. Waited up through teenage curfews and cried quietly after Harold's funeral. It was as if her daughter had completely forgotten who was the mother and who was the daughter. Paige, honey, I'm not staff. I'm your mother. Please, Mom, don't be dramatic. It's just a family dinner. You can buy everything. I'll give you the money after. Evan already talked to his mom, Linda, and she's bringing desserts. You just handle the main course, sides, appetizers, and get the house spotless before and after. You know, the usual. The usual. A bitter laugh rose in Clara's throat. When did it become normal for her to be the family's unpaid help? When did her time, her energy, her dignity get priced at zero? And Mom, one more thing. Evan's family is particular. Nothing spicy. Aunt Carol can't eat gluten. Cousin Matthew is vegetarian. Evan's grandma eats only very well done meat. Oh, and we'll need red wine, but not pricey. It adds up. Clara stayed silent, each word landing like a slap. It wasn't just the Thanksgiving dinner. It was a lifetime of tiny humiliations piling up like rain into a storm. The 15 people, said so casually, like cooking for a crowd of picky strangers, was boiling water for tea. And what will you be doing, Paige, while I cook for your husband's entire family? Oh, Mom, I'll help, of course. I'll, set the table and pour drinks. Evan will be busy hosting his family. You know how these gatherings are. Something cracked inside Clara. Not her heart. Something deeper. Her patience. Her endless yes. Her need to be the perfect mother who never made waves. For 72 years, she'd been the woman who solved, adapted, smiled, even when her world was falling apart. Paige, I have a question. When was the last time Evan's family invited me to anything? When did they treat me like a grandmother, not a free domestic worker? Mom, don't start. They appreciate you. It's just, well, you know how Evan is. He's shy. Shy. Evan, who never hesitated to borrow money for car repairs. Evan, who never blinked when Clara picked up dinner for all four of them. Evan, who happily used Clara's place like a free hotel when his parents came to town. All right, Paige, I understand perfectly. Clara's voice changed. Cool, deliberate. Paige seemed to hear it. Her tone turned syrupy, edging into manipulative. So that's a yes, Mom? You'll do everything? I promise it'll be a beautiful Thanksgiving. Everyone will remember how amazing your cooking is. Clara looked out at her little Northeast Portland garden, the roses she planted when Paige was a child, the old swing that squeaked when her granddaughter used to visit, before moving away and mostly forgetting to call. Her world had shrunk to being useful. Paige, my love, here's news. Your husband's relatives are coming for Thanksgiving? Perfect. I am going on a trip. You can take care of everyone. I'm not a babysitter or an employee. Silence. Clara could almost hear Paige's panicked gears turning, see her face drain at the idea of organizing dinner for 15 picky guests herself. What? Mom, you can't be serious. A trip? Where? With who? This is ridiculous. Everything's already planned. Planned by you, Paige, without asking if I agreed. Clara hung up with trembling hands and stared at the receiver like it was something foreign. For the first time in decades, she'd said no. For the first time, she'd set a boundary. Terrifying and liberating. She walked into the living room where a lifetime of photos watched from the shelves. Paige at 5 in a polka dot dress, toothless, grinning in the yard. Harold, handsome and young in his uniform before life hit them with bills, illness, and disappointment. Paige's early Thanksgivings, when Clara believed mothering was enough to be happy. When did she stop being Clara, the woman with her own dreams, and turn into Paige's mom, full time? She remembered the day Harold died, 30 years ago. Paige was 15. Clara promised herself she'd be mother and father, that Paige would never lack anything. She kept that promise. Double shifts until her hands roughened and shoulders stooped. She sold her engagement ring to pay Paige's tuition. She chose loneliness over romance because Paige needed stability. 30 years swallowing her needs because her daughter was everything. When Paige married Evan 5 years ago, Clara thought she could finally live for herself, that her adult daughter would need less. How naive. The first favor came 2 months after the wedding. Mom, can you lend us $2,000 for Evan's car down payment? We'll pay you next month. Next month never came, but more favors did. Mom, can you watch the house while we're in Cabo? Mom, can you host Evan's parents? Our place is too small. And Clara always said yes. She opened her nightstand drawer, the folder of important things. Inside was the notebook where she tracked family expenses. Not out of suspicion, out of habit. A working woman knows every cent matters. The numbers punched. In 5 years, she'd spent over $15,000 on Paige and Evan. From her pension, her savings, the money meant for her own medical needs. Evan's birthday dinner, $110. Paige's car repair, $800. Thanksgiving groceries and decor, $950. Flights for Paige and Evan to visit his folks, $600. Paige's rent when Evan lost his job, $1,200 for 3 months. Never, not once, did they ask if she needed anything, if she had enough for medication, if someone could help fix the leak she'd ignored for 2 years so she could pay for Paige's emergencies. She sat on the bed. For the first time in years, she let herself cry. Not from sadness, but from rage. At Paige for taking her for granted. At Evan for treating her like free labor. At herself for letting it happen. The phone rang. Paige. Mom, please. You can't do this to me. I already told Evan you'd cook. He invited everyone. What am I supposed to do? I can't cook for that many. Learn, Clara said, with a calm she didn't know she had. Mom, this is absurd. Cancel that trip? Where would you go alone? With what money? Be realistic. You can't travel alone at your age. At my age. As if 72 meant helpless. As if being a grandmother meant she was done being a woman with her own life. Paige, I have enough to travel. The same money I've been spending on you for years. What are you talking about? We've never asked you for money. The lie turned Clara's stomach. Had Paige really forgotten every loan? Or decided they didn't count because it was, Mom? Paige, I have receipts. Every cent from the last 5 years. Silence. Then smaller, shakier. Mom, that's different. We're family. Families help each other. You're right. Families help each other. When was the last time you helped me? More silence. Clara pictured her daughter scanning past years for a memory that didn't exist. I'm always here for you, Mom. I always call you. You call when you need something. That's different. The truth hung in the air like a charge. Clara stepped to the window and looked at her street, where she'd lived 40 years. The same block where she raised Paige. Mourned Harold. Grew old, waiting for someone to treat her with the respect she deserved. Tomorrow, I'm going to a travel agency. You'll figure it out without me. That night, Clara stared at the ceiling. The old fridge hummed. The bathroom's slow drip ticked. The timbers creaked with age. At 3 a.m., she got up and made chamomile, the same tea she brewed for Paige's childhood nightmares. Irony, now, the nightmares were hers and had names: ingratitude, emotional abuse, and the ache of having spent 30 years being essential to everyone and valued by no one. She sat at the kitchen table, steam curling from her cup, and let herself remember not the sweet stuff she replayed for comfort, but the moments she'd buried. The first time Paige made her feel small, 3 years ago at a neighbor's baby shower, someone complimented Clara's dress. Paige joked, I hope she didn't spend too much. You know how old people are with money. Old people. As if age equals irresponsibility. As if 72 years of earning and budgeting meant nothing next to Paige's 28 years of living on favors. She remembered Evan's first meal at her house when he and Paige started dating. She cooked for hours, chicken in green sauce, saffron rice, refried beans, handmade tortillas, 3 salsas. He ate without looking up, offered no thanks, then burped and said, It's all right. But my mom, Linda, uses more chili. Paige laughed. She pictured the Thanksgivings she'd hosted 10, 12, 15 of Evan's relatives sprawled in her living room, criticizing everything. Too cold, music too loud, decor too plain. Paige never defended her. Not once. She remembered slicing her hand badly while cooking for Evan's birthday. The ER stitches. Paige arrived 2 hours late, not because she was busy, but because she'd been at the salon. Oh, Mom, was that drama necessary? It's just a few stitches. She remembered selling Harold's engagement ring, the only valuable keepsake, to lend Paige $3,000 when Evan lost his job. 3 months to repay. 2 years ago. She remembered the week-long flu. So weak, she barely stood. Paige didn't come once, but the day Clara felt better, Paige called to ask her to water plants because she and friends were headed to wine country for the weekend. And she remembered the exact moment she stopped being a person and became a function. Aunt Jean Ellis's funeral, Harold's sister. Clara cried hard, missing the woman who'd shared decades of confidences and laughter. Paige came over, not to comfort her, but to whisper, Mom, stop crying. People will think you're overdoing it. Also, I need you to pick up my dress from the cleaners early tomorrow. I need you to go. Her tea had gone cold. She hardly noticed. 30 years of small deaths were finally reaching her surface. The phone rang. 4 a.m. Mom, are you awake? I can't sleep. Evan is furious. How am I supposed to sort dinner? His parents already booked their flights. You can't do this to me. Paige sounded desperate, but for the first time, Clara didn't feel the reflex to rescue. Her daughter's problems sounded like what they were, her daughter's. Paige, it's 4 a.m. I know, but I can't sleep. Mom, be reasonable. We can fix this. What if I pay for ingredients? What if I help more in the kitchen? As if the problem were a little help, not the fact they'd planned to use her home, time, energy, and money without asking. Paige, the solution is simple. Host dinner at your place? Our house is too small. Rent a hall. That costs money. And my time, my house, my labor don't? Silence, heavy with 30 years of unsaid things. Mom, I don't know what's gotten into you. You're being strange. Selfish. Selfish. The word lobbed at any woman who dares set boundaries. The word meant to make us feel guilty for having needs. I'm hanging up now. Don't call until your solution doesn't involve me. Mom, Clara hung up and unplugged the phone. The silence that followed was the most beautiful sound she'd heard in years. The next morning, Clara woke with an unfamiliar feeling in her chest, not anxiety. After a minute, she named it freedom. For the first time in 30 years, she didn't have to guess what Paige needed or what sacrifice came next. She dressed carefully. Her favorite cream blouse, the one Paige always mocked as too old. She brushed her hair and, for the first time in years, looked in the mirror not to hide lines, but to recognize herself. There stood Clara Whitman, 72, widow, mother, and a woman. She walked toward downtown Portland with firm steps, each block a declaration of independence. The travel agency sat near Pioneer Courthouse Square, between the pharmacy where she filled prescriptions and the bakery, where she'd bought bread for 40 years. Good morning. How can I help you? The young woman behind the counter smiled genuinely. Ava Chen, according to her badge. I want to take a trip for Thanksgiving. How wonderful. Destination in mind? Traveling with family? I'm traveling alone. As far from here as possible. Ava didn't flinch. She opened her laptop. We have lovely solo packages. Beach, mountains, historic cities. Clara studied the photos. White sand in Mexico, snow in Switzerland, cobblestones in Spain. For years, she'd seen those places in magazines at the doctor's office and decided they were for other people, people allowed to be happy. What's your budget? Ava asked gently. Clara thought about the $15,000 logged in her notebook. Money she'd given freely, without asking anything back, believing love was purchased with sacrifice. I have $5,000, she said, and realized it was the first time in years she was talking about her money, not money set aside for Paige's emergencies. With $5,000, we can do something wonderful, Ava said. How about Spain and Italy? 3 weeks, Madrid, Barcelona, Rome, Florence, historic hotels, meals, English-speaking guides, perfect for rediscovering yourself. Rediscover. The word rang like a bell in Clara's chest. When was the last time she did anything to rediscover herself? I'm interested. When does it depart? We have a November 20th departure. Back December 10th, exactly the Thanksgiving holiday. Exactly when Paige expected her to cook for 15 people in her own house. The irony almost made Clara laugh. Do you need to think it over? Ava asked. No, Clara said. Book it. As Ava prepared documents, terror and euphoria braided inside Clara, the most impulsive decision of her life, and the one that made the most sense. For the first time, she was choosing her happiness over others' expectations. I'll need your passport and a card for the deposit, Ava said. Clara handed over her passport. Valid, because she'd renewed it last year on a secret hope. Paige had scoffed. Why are you renewing your passport, Mom? Where would you even go? To Spain and Italy, Clara thought, smiling. I'm going to Spain and Italy. She left the agency with tickets in hand, feeling like a different person. It wasn't just the trip, it was what it meant, deciding to live for herself. Her phone buzzed, a text from Paige. Mom, Evan says, if you don't cancel, he'll tell his whole family you're selfish and ruined Thanksgiving. Is that what you want? Clara read it twice. The first time, with old panic. The second, with new clarity. Evan, who never worked more than 6 consecutive months. Evan, who lived in her house for 3 rent-free months. Evan, who ate her food, used her power and water, and now had the nerve to call her selfish. She typed, tell Evan he can say whatever he wants. I'll be in Europe. I won't hear it. Then added, with my money, the same money I've spent on you for years. The phone rang instantly. Paige. For the first time in her life, Clara declined. Power off. Purse. She had better things to do than absorb manipulations. She needed luggage. She needed to figure out what to wear in Europe in late November. She needed to start the life she'd postponed for 72 years. Walking toward a luggage shop, Clara felt lighter with each step, like she'd taken off an invisible backpack full of stones. For the first time in 30 years, there was something to look forward to. That wasn't about making someone else happy. For 3 days, she left her phone off, not from fear, but because she'd found something wonderful. Silence. The silence of not having to justify her choices. The silence of not defending why she deserved joy. She prepared like a teenager planning a first date. A new wine-red suitcase, clothes she'd never dared wear, a chic beige coat, bright scarves, pretty walking shoes for European streets. At Powell's City of Books, she bought a guide to Spain and Italy and spent hours with maps, marking the Prado in Madrid, La Sagrada Familia in Barcelona, the Colosseum in Rome, the canals of Venice where she would sip coffee and watch gondolas drift. On the 4th day, she turned on her phone. 47 missed calls, 12 voicemails, 23 texts. She read them all calmly. Mom, pick up. Mom, this is ridiculous. You're acting like a child. Evan says we'll have to find another solution if you don't change your mind. Mom, his family already bought tickets. You can't ruin Thanksgiving. I'm so disappointed. I never thought you'd be so selfish. Mom, please, I need you. Anger, guilt, victimhood, the manipulation manual. One she'd obeyed for years. Not anymore. She called the one person who always told her the truth. Joy Kim, 74. Blunt, loyal, the friend who widowed the same year and chose a different path. Learned to drive, took painting classes, joined tour groups, even dated a bit. Where have you been? Joy asked. Paige called me shrieking. Joy, I need honesty. Clara told her everything, from the demand to host 15 to the Europe booking. You look different, Joy said at their corner cafe. You look more like yourself. Am I being selfish? Joy laughed like wind chimes. Do you know how many years I've waited for you to have this talk with yourself? What do you mean? I've watched how Paige treats you and how you let her. Every time I bring it up, you defend her. But she's my daughter. But she's struggling. But mothers? Sound familiar? Clara flushed. Yes, she'd used those excuses to justify the unjustifiable. Does going away for Thanksgiving make me a bad mother? It makes you a woman finally learning the difference between a good mother and a useful mother, Joy said. A good mother teaches independence, responsibility, gratitude. A useful mother does everything until her kids forget how to do anything. Guess which one you've been? The words fell like rain on parched ground. Clara had been useful, not good. She'd solved so much that Paige forgot how. But isn't a mother supposed to always be available? Paige is 33, Joy said, a married adult with a home. If at 33 she can't host Thanksgiving without mom doing all of it, the problem isn't you. It's that you never made her believe she could. But after Harold died, I wanted to do everything for her. That made sense at 15. You kept doing it at 20, 25, 30. Now she thinks your job is to exist for her. Clara stared at her cup. Maybe she'd loved Paige the wrong way, protected her into helplessness. What if she stops speaking to me? Clara whispered. Then you'll learn if she loves you, or just loves what you do for her. Simple. Terrible. For years, Clara confused being needed with being loved. Do you know the saddest part? Joy asked. Paige doesn't even know you. She knows the version of you who solves and pays. She doesn't know Clara, the woman with dreams deserving of respect. For the first time in days, Clara wanted to cry. Not from sorrow, but relief. Someone saw her as more than a function. Go to Europe, Joy said, squeezing her hand. Rediscover who you are when you're not someone's mom. The next day, Clara decided to face the storm. She couldn't fly to Europe with a Cold War simmering. She needed one final boundary-setting conversation. Mom, finally, Paige answered. I've been worried. Evan says you probably hit your head. That's why you're acting weird. There it was. Fake concern, followed by a narrative that painted her as senile. Evan, the sudden armchair neurologist. Paige, come to my house. 3 o'clock. Alone. Alone? Evan wants to talk to you. He says you need to understand reality. Either you come alone, or neither of you come. Paige arrived scowling, arms crossed like a punished teen. Mom, this has to stop. You're acting like a spoiled child. The whole family's talking about you. What family, Paige? Evan's family, who's never invited me to anything? The people who know me only as the woman who cooks for free? That's not true. They appreciate you. When did any of them ask how I am? Bring me a gift? Invite me out? Call just to chat? Silence. They both knew the answer. Paige, for 5 years, I've been your husband's family's unpaid domestic worker, and you've been fine with that. That's not true. We've always treated you with respect, considered my feelings, valued my time. Clara fetched her notebook and set it on the coffee table. She flipped to the totals. $15,000 in 5 years from my pension and savings, money for my old age. Paige's eyes went wide. Mom, we never asked you to keep track. You didn't ask permission before spending it either. You just assumed it was yours. But we're family. Families help each other. Then tell me how you've helped me. Silence. Thick enough to hear the kitchen clock. I'm always here when you need me. When have I needed you? Give me one example. More silence. When you were sick, Paige blurted. When I had the flu last year, Clara said. You didn't come once. That day, you were at the spa with Evan's friends. Paige blushed. I didn't know you were that bad. I sent 3 messages saying I was very sick. You never replied. Mom, you can't nitpick every little thing. They aren't little things, Paige. There are 30 years of little things adding up to this. Me giving, you taking. And the day I set a boundary, I'm the villain. Paige started to cry. Not honest tears of recognition, but practiced, manipulative ones. Mom, you can't leave for Thanksgiving. You can't leave me with this problem. You created it. You told Evan's family I'd cook without asking. You assumed my house, my time, my money. It isn't my problem. But I don't know what to do. I can't cook for that many. Learn. Hire a caterer. Order. In. 100 solutions that don't involve me. That costs money. And mine doesn't? Paige wiped her face and shifted tactics. Mom, if you do this, Evan will be really upset. If his family feels unwelcome, it's my fault. Then maybe it's time Evan manages his own family instead of outsourcing to his mother-in-law. You can't talk about my husband like that. I can, and I am. He's 35 and has never hosted anything because women always do it for him. First Linda, then me. When does he grow up? Paige stood, furious. I get it. You're jealous. I'm not just yours anymore. You're jealous of Evan. The accusation was so absurd, Clara nearly laughed. Paige, I'm not jealous of Evan. I'm tired of working for free. You know what? Go on your stupid trip. We'll handle it without you. And when you come home lonely, don't come crying. She slammed the door. The house shook. Clara breathed deep. For the first time in 30 years, she'd said exactly what she thought, and the world did not end. The days that followed felt strangely calm. She waited for guilt, second thoughts, that nagging inner critic. It didn't come. Instead, peace. She woke without the anxiety of fixing Paige's day. She ate breakfast slowly, reading the paper cover to cover. She walked Laurelhurst Park, noticing fall colors, elderly couples feeding ducks, children playing with reckless joy. One afternoon, packing for the trip, the doorbell rang. She expected Paige, maybe to apologize, maybe to take one last manipulative shot. Instead, Linda, Evan's mother, elegant, cool, 68, always courteous at a distance. In 5 years, they'd never talked longer than 10 minutes. Eleanor, sorry to drop in. We need to talk. Clara didn't correct the name slip. She just nodded her in. I heard about your trip, Linda said, perching on the sofa. Do you think the timing is appropriate? We already planned everything. My family bought tickets. Clara studied Linda's face. No malice, just that assumption that other people's plans rank above hers. Linda, May I ask something? In 5 years, how many times has your family invited me to anything? Blink. Not the question she expected. We've always appreciated you opening your home. That isn't what I asked. How many times was I the guest, not the host? Silence stretched. Linda stared at her hands. We always thought you enjoyed hosting, Linda offered weakly. You're such a good cook. Your home is so welcoming. For 5 years, Clara said, I've cooked your family. Thanksgiving, birthdays, every special occasion. I've spent thousands on food, decor, gifts. I've cleaned before and after, washed mountains of dishes, and not once did anyone genuinely thank me. But last Thanksgiving, your sister Carol said my turkey was dry. Your brother in law Elias complained there wasn't enough beer. Your son burped and fell asleep on my sofa while I washed up. Is that appreciation? Linda flushed. She knew it was true. She'd just never considered it. I hadn't realized, she said. Of course not. For 5 years, you've seen me as part of the furniture. The woman who cooks, cleans, pays, but who doesn't have feelings. That's not fair. We dash dash. Do you know my favorite color, Linda? My favorite music? Do you know any hobby or dream I have that doesn't involve your family? Linda's eyes widened. She knew nothing. I didn't think. Exactly. You didn't think. Because to your family, I'm a function. Linda was quiet a long time. When she spoke, her voice was softer. What can we do to fix this? Nothing, Clara said gently. You can't fix 5 years with an apology. And I don't need you to. Thanksgiving can be at a restaurant, your house, Paige's, anywhere but mine. For 5 years, you assumed my home was available. This year, you'll make other plans. I know we've made mistakes. But cutting contact, isn't that extreme? I'm not cutting contact. I'm setting boundaries. I'm telling you, I won't be your unpaid help. Linda stood to go, but paused at the door. Can I ask something personal? Of course. Were you ever happy doing all this for us? The question hit like a punch, not cruel, but honest. And the answer was devastatingly simple. No, Linda, I wasn't. I've been so busy being useful, I forgot to be happy. Linda nodded, as if finally seeing something clearly. I hope you find that happiness on your trip. After she left, Clara sat with a cup of tea. For the first time, someone from Evan's family had recognized her right to be happy. A small step, but something. She looked at the calendar. 5 days until her flight. 5 days to leave behind 30 years of being the fixer and start being the woman living her own life. How's everything? Joy asked over the phone. I think I'm finally learning the difference between being needed and being respected. And how does that feel? Clara smiled, a real smile that traveled through the line. Like freedom. The day before her flight, Clara woke buzzing with anticipation like a child, waiting for Thanksgiving break. Suitcase packed, documents in a tidy folder, clothes chosen for every imagined moment. More important than all of that, something she'd lost decades ago: hope. She bathed, chose her favorite terracotta dress, the one Paige called too flashy, and put on makeup, not to look younger, but to celebrate the woman she'd rediscovered. Every line had a story. For the first time in years, she was proud of them. As she finished breakfast, the doorbell rang. Her heart leapt, maybe Paige, ready to apologize. But there stood an older gentleman, well dressed, holding flowers. Mrs. Clara Whitman? Yes. My name is Victor Chen. I'm Ava's father, the travel agent who booked your trip. Clara blinked. Why would Ava's dad be here? Ava mentioned you, Victor said, smiling. She told me you're a brave woman traveling alone to Europe for the first time. I'm taking the same trip, same dates, almost the same route. He flushed slightly. Would you like some company? Not romance, nothing presumptuous. Just someone to share a meal with now and then. Someone to snap your photo by the Leaning Tower. It was so unexpected she didn't know what to say. She'd pictured this trip as a declaration of independence. But here was kindness, company without obligations. I wasn't expecting this, she said. Ava showed me your photo at the agency, he added quickly, embarrassed. I told her I hope to meet interesting people. She said you had a smile with strength and sadness. That intrigued me. Clara really looked at him. 75, silver hair, kind eyes behind tasteful frames, posture dignified but not stiff. Brown wool sweater, pressed slacks, not handsome, but radiating calm and respect. May I ask why you're traveling alone? She said. My wife died 2 years ago. Cancer, Victor said. During her last year, I promised if she went first, I wouldn't sit at home mourning. I'd travel, see things, live for both of us. This is my first big trip without her. Connection bloomed, both of them trying to find the versions of themselves they'd lost. And what do you hope to find? Clara asked. I hope to find the man I was before I became just Maria's husband. To remember what I enjoy when I'm not caring for someone else. His words rang in her heart, exactly what she'd felt, but hadn't said. Victor, I need to be honest. This trip matters to me. It's the first thing I've done purely for myself in 30 years. I don't want to tangle it with expectations. Oh, Mrs. Whitman, he said gently. I don't either. Just the possibility of good conversation and a friend who tells me if I've got pesto in my teeth. Clara laughed, an unguarded, delighted laugh she hadn't heard from herself in ages. You know what? I'd like that, she said. One condition. Name it. We each pay our way. No old-fashioned chivalry. I have my own money and intend to use it. Victor smiled. I think we'll get along well. He handed her the daisies, white and yellow, simple and beautiful, and left his card with his number and hotel in Madrid. After he left, Clara set the flowers in a vase and felt like a teenager. Not because of romance, but because someone had seen more than a useful mother. Someone saw an interesting woman. Tomorrow, she'd be on a plane to Madrid. For the first time in decades, she didn't know what to expect. That uncertainty, once terrifying, now thrilled her. Her phone buzzed. Paige. Mom, your flight is tomorrow, right? Yes. Long pause. Mom, I don't want you to leave angry with me. I'm not leaving angry, Paige. I'm leaving free. Can we talk when you get back? We can talk when you're ready to truly listen. Another pause. I love you, Mom. I love you too, Paige. But I won't confuse love with unlimited availability anymore. That night, Clara made a simple soup and salad, her last meal at home before the trip. She ate slowly, aware that tomorrow she'd be dining in Madrid. For the first time in 30 years, something was completely hers, a future full of possibility. 3 weeks later, Clara sat on a small terrace in Barcelona, a cup of café con leche warm in her hands, the late Mediterranean sun on her face. She wrote in a fresh journal she'd bought in Madrid, something she hadn't done since she was a teen. Day 21 in Europe, she wrote carefully. Today I learned something important. Happiness isn't a prize after years of sacrifice. It's a daily choice. Victor arrived with 2 gelatos, a lemon for her, chocolate for him. In 3 weeks, they'd become easy friends. He was the ideal companion, cultured without pretense, funny without performing, attentive without intruding. They wandered the Prado together, got lost together in Rome, laughed when he mangled Italian, and accidentally asked for shoes with cheese. Writing your memoirs? Victor teased, sitting beside her. Writing my new story, Clara smiled. The one that starts at 72. Her phone had chimed throughout the trip. Messages from Paige. Desperate, angry, manipulative. Early on, Clara read them all, guilt flaring. But slowly, her view shifted. Paige's problems weren't emergencies for Clara to solve. They were lessons Paige had to learn. The most recent message, 2 days ago, was different. Mom, we had to cancel Thanksgiving. Evan and I fought about who would handle everything. We realized we weren't ready to host something so big. His parents are disappointed in us, not in you. I think I understand a little better why you left. I hope you're okay. Clara read it 3 times. She felt no triumph, only a quiet confirmation. She'd made the right call. Maybe, for the first time in her adult life, Paige was learning that actions have consequences, and there isn't always someone to clean them up. What are you thinking? Victor asked. That for most of my life, I believed my worth depended on being useful, Clara said. I thought love was earned by being indispensable. Now I know real love isn't earned, it exists. Or it doesn't. People who truly love you don't vanish the second you stop serving them. Victor nodded. He'd told her how he lost his own identity while being the perfect husband. She'd told him how she lost hers being the perfect mother. Do you know the strangest part? Clara said. I haven't cooked a single meal for anyone this whole trip, and I don't miss it. I thought I would. What do you miss? The version of me before I became a function. The woman who read for pleasure, had opinions about movies, dreamed of traveling. She fell asleep, but didn't die. The sun sank, painting the sky gold and pink. Tomorrow was her last day before flying home. But home no longer sounded like a prison. It sounded like a place she could keep being the woman she found on this trip. Can I confess something? Clara asked. Always. When I was young, before marriage, I wanted to be an art teacher. I never told anyone. After Paige was born, after Harold died, there were always reasons to delay. Now I think 72 isn't too late. Victor smiled. My confession. I always wanted to learn piano. Maria used to say we were too old to start. He grinned. I think I'm going to buy a piano. They laughed. The bright laughter of two people who discovered life doesn't end at 70. In a way, it starts. That night, Clara watched Barcelona lights flicker from her hotel. Tomorrow, she'd return home, not as Paige's on-call cook or Evan's free staff, but as Clara Whitman, a woman who'd learned that no isn't selfish, it's survival. A text from Joy. "How's the new Clara?" She typed back, "She's learning it's never too late to start a new life." On the plane, watching Europe shrink beneath clouds, Clara wrote, "Today, I don't need permission to live. Respect isn't begged, it's required. Freedom isn't doing whatever I want, it's refusing what I don't. Tomorrow, when I land, I begin the rest of my life." She closed the journal and reclined. For the first time in 72 years, the future belonged entirely to her. It wasn't revenge, it was liberation, and it felt exactly like flying. 6 months later, Clara sat in her new art studio, hands stained with acrylic heart light. She never imagined at 73 she'd be mixing colors and discovering a natural eye for landscapes. The house felt different now, no longer a place where she waited for desperate calls or drop in favors. It was her sanctuary, where every object was where she wanted it, every decision hers. Silence no longer scared her, it held her. She and Paige talk now, but differently. At first, it was rocky. Tears, blame, old patterns. But something shifted when Clara stopped defending and simply held her boundaries. Paige had to relate to her as a person, not a resource. She was learning. She asked how Clara was before dumping problems. She invited Clara to lunch without assuming she'd pay. Small changes, huge meaning. Evan? Evan was still Evan. But he wasn't Clara's problem. Paige was learning that her husband's problems are his, not her mother's. A hard lesson, but necessary. Victor visited once a week. They drank tea, shared class stories. He really did buy that piano. They went to the movies like two friends. No complicated expectations. Maybe someday it'd be more. For the first time, not knowing felt beautiful, not frightening. Clara learned self-love isn't selfish. It's emotional survival. For years, she confused sacrifice with love, believing the more she gave, the more she'd be loved. Now she knew true love grows where both people respect each other's individuality. Her bank account grew. When you stop being the family ATM, it's wild how money accumulates. She used some for a home refresh, painting classes, and small luxuries she once called unnecessary. A monthly massage, new books, fresh flowers, everyday joy. The biggest surprise was realizing she wasn't invisible. She'd just stopped seeing herself. When she started valuing herself, others followed. Neighbors greeted her differently. The butcher asked about her painting. The librarian set aside art books for her. She learned boundaries don't destroy relationships. They either improve them or end them. Both outcomes are good. The ones that improve become real. The ones that end likely weren't worth keeping. Some days, sadness flickered for lost years, for the woman who believed she was indispensable when she was interchangeable. But sadness no longer paralyzed her. She acknowledged it, embraced it, let it go. The past taught her. The present belonged to her. She looked at her hands, hands that cooked thousands of meals for people who took them for granted. Hands that cleaned messes she didn't make. Hands that signed checks for others' dreams. Now those hands made art, wrote thoughts, applauded her own wins. The woman who boarded that plane to Madrid was an exhausted caretaker who'd forgotten her own name. The woman who came back is Clara Whitman, artist, traveler, friend, whole, needing no one's approval to exist. She still woke not knowing what the day held, but uncertainty now thrilled her because she'd finally learned the most important lesson. She deserves to write her own story, and it's never too late to change the ending. If you enjoyed my story, you can send a super thanks so I can write more. What about you? What would you do in this person's shoes? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm always curious. And tell me where you heard this story. For more true to life stories, like the video and subscribe. Many more are waiting. Big hugs, and see you next time.